Here we go. Okay, so welcome everyone to week 2 of our Acceleration Circle book club, or we can call it book study because we're actually studying the book, Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Arman, hello. Siev, Andrea, Vahak, Tanvi, Armine, uh, uh, Narek, and whoever else I cannot catch, please feel free to put in any questions you have in the comments, or you're welcome to stop me if this is something important because I really want this to be an interactive session. So this is us together. We're just, we're hanging out, we're having a good time, and we're learning all at the same time. So let's make this session as interactive as possible. Now, I know Maria has to leave. She has something very special to go to, a private movie screening. Maria John, have a beautiful time, and you're going to come back and tell us all about it. For the rest of us, um, if you recall, today we're doing chapter 1 of the book. Did everyone have a chance to read chapter 1, or did anyone not have a chance to read chapter 1? Okay. And if you recall, I had placed some questions for us to discuss for chapter 1. So who wants to go first? We have Inga also coming, and Arman is joining as well. Who wants to go first? Let's start
Hello.
with Maria. Maria, you go first, since I know you have to leave early today. Tell me your impression of chapter 1. We had posted a few questions regarding chapter 1. Tell me, what was your impression? What was your takeaway, or what were your top 2 takeaways from chapter 1?
Okay, so I would say that I'm the person who really likes examples. And I see in this book, starting from chapter 1, there is a lot of live examples, and you can basically experience that through examples. That was my number one observation and what I liked about the book, that there is no like a raw material, but you can experience and through live stories, like real life stories. And yeah, answering your question, I think it's a very controversial, like renting versus owning. I would say it's pretty much depends on the mentality and in which country we were raised up, and what are the values of our culture, mentality, etc. And we were raised up with a
Where are you based from, first of all, so everyone can know? Where
I'm
are you
based
based?
in Georgia, but country Georgia, and here is the people have the mentality in terms to be safe, they should own the property. I'm sure in different countries it's varies and it's very different. So I'm really curious to know how is it in your country. Like we have people from different countries, and it's very interesting to know how were you raised up with what, let's say, what were the
Would you
values.
like to see a case study, everyone? Because I prepared a case study for us to go through. So once everybody had a chance to kind of take their sort of their stake, whether they're in a rent camp or owning camp, we will go through the case study. But before we go to the case study, let's go through and talk about the book first. Let's do the book first, okay? And then we'll talk about the conversation of renting versus owning, and then we can wrap up for this week. And I have um another homework for us to do for next week. So why don't we go with Armine? Armine, what was your impression of chapter 1? Give me your takeaways, and like, how do you take this information and apply to you for yourself in your life, in real life?
Yeah, to be honest, I already used the information I read in this book when I talk with clients, as I deal with finance, and um, I have a different type clients, and they have different mentality, and um, they deal with money in different ways, and I liked a lot the way he explained his ideas very easy with examples, and it helps a lot to everyone. Like if you are not in finance, it's also easy to understand what does it mean.
So let's take a phrase like no one's crazy. Like I know he talked about the
yeah,
fact no one's
yeah,
crazy,
yeah.
right? And he had
I
bunch
just
of examples. What example does that like the that you can think of where it's relatable, and why do you even bother saying no one's crazy? And maybe people are crazy because I think people are crazy when it comes to money. I really do. We all are. We have different relationships with money. We have different emotions when it comes to money. And like I said last time, I have had many situations when very wealthy people feel poor. They feel
yeah,
poor. They're paralyzed. They can't
yeah.
spend their money. And we have
Mm-hmm.
the total opposite where you have people who are not wealthy, uh, and they're spending their money left and right without thinking about tomorrow. So going back to Armine, what do you how do you interpret the phrase "no one's crazy"?
Um, I think two smart people can disagree on money matters because their experience are so different. I knew that our experience in our country and so on, it matters a lot, but I couldn't realize how it is important for our lives. So, example of Kennedy uh, is very very good explanation of this. Like the person who lives in the same time period uh, doesn't know anything about Great Depression, and the other people who was influenced on this, they have different thoughts about the money and how they use it and what they think to do with this money.
So just
So
hold on one second. I think this is a great example. I want to go deeper with that. Just one second. Maria Jan, if you don't mind, because my phone is being used right now, could you post the questions in our the chat because I want everybody to see the questions we were posing. And the Kennedy example is a very good example. Let's go deeper with that. Andrea, what's your take on that? When he's bringing this example, how did you understand that? What was your takeaway from that?
The Kennedy, you mean?
Yes, when remember in chapter one,
Yeah,
he's talking about Kennedy, and he
yeah,
lived through the same time
yeah.
period where in the US a lot of people were struggling, but then his experience was very, very, very different, right?
Yeah, I was really surprised. So I really love this example because I didn't know from the history or didn't know this. So I really loved it. And as I'm also working with trauma and generational patterns, it was absolutely the case when there is not in the family, there is not in the environment. It doesn't matter whether a lot of people affected by that, but I don't have, or my family doesn't have that kind of experience. I don't have connection with it, and there is no impact in my life. I can see as a witness, but I don't have attachment to it.
mhm.
Anybody else wants to have any other comments about this specific example? Tanvi, what do you think? You're on
I
mute. Go ahead.
yeah. Uh it was a surprise. I also didn't know. I was actually really shocked about that and extra shocked that people voted for him to be the president then.
Okay. Well,
Like
that's
if you're
another
not
conversation. We're not going to go into the politics of it. But
no, no, just that someone who's not aware of the situation people were living through.
okay. And do you guys remember the example of when he talks about the guy who made a lot of money and he was behaving like an I don't want to like say an asshole, but he was behaving like an idiot when he was like he was I think in his example, he was like tipping people and then then he had like he with his friends he took gold bars and then were throwing in the water or something, and then
Yes.
remember that example. In the
Yes.
meantime, he was being very rude to average hardworking people, and he was being extremely sort of quote unquote cheap when it came to his money. He didn't want to spend the money. He was making a big deal. What was your take on that? Let's go to Arman, if you don't mind, if you're okay to talk, you can unmute yourself and tell me what did you think of that example, that scenario? What was your takeaway from that scenario?
Hello. Actually, I didn't yet. Like, sorry, are you referring to me?
If you
Sorry.
can't talk, Arman, it's okay. Don't
Yeah,
worry
yeah,
about
sorry.
it.
Yes, I can. I actually didn't start reading the book, but I decided that I have this opportunity to listen to it like audio via Zoom, but
No
then I will
worries. No, do you
read the
have the
book.
book?
So
If you
about
don't have the book, you reach out to me separately. I'll make sure you receive the copy of the book,
no,
okay?
I will be reading it
Perfect.
soon. So
Let's go.
about this, sorry, about this example
Yes.
that money, just keeping the money. I think there is no sense and there is no true joy in just having a lot of money because I regard money as a mean of value exchange. So we need money to let's say somebody does create some good, whether it's like a service or some positive outcome. Let's say providing a medical, let's say a doctor provides a medical service or a tutor provides teaching. Yeah, so in exchange, it receives value in a form of money. When later he can or she can spend to receive some another value or generate value. So money in itself is worth nothing. Just yes, it's a piece of paper. It's just a necessary tool for a fair exchange of value. That's what I think.
Okay. Um, Going back to Armine, is there any other example that resonated with you that you want to bring it up so that we can discuss?
The example when he describes that Americans enjoy a strong economy during World War II, while parts of Germany and Japan were devastated, and poor households in US spent a lot of lottery tickets because for many it feels like their only shot at improving their lives. I guess it was interesting example and examples, and I didn't think about it from this side. I knew that World War II was awful for all over the world, but I couldn't imagine that impact on Americans people was positive in meaning of psychology of money, and the other part of the world was struggling because of that.
Excellent. Any other comments from anyone else? Any other comments?
Maybe I can add to this, throwing and burning the situation that they were not valuing. So kind of like we need to connect with money as with ourselves or with others with respect and valuing and respecting and also give the worthiness of everything. And because if we are undervaluing, then basically the connection is also undervaluing ourselves. And it could also, what I can see also that, and then there is a saying that rich people are changing behaviors. And luckily, I can see people whose characteristic hasn't been changed for decades, just because they were famous, they had a lot of money, so they could keep their kindness, yeah, and also kindness could come with also with money. And also, this is like easy money and hard money. So there are a lot of aspects of this.
Amazing. Let's move on to the next point. So that was the point of so the example of the Kennedy's example was demonstrating how the people in the same time frame with different resources can have a very different experience and outcome. But there was another point that he was making in the book, which I thought was very important, which was when it comes to financial success, unlike in other areas, like, I don't know, being a doctor or a lawyer or some other thing, when it comes to financial success, your effort or your intelligence may not match or may not be as important. So you guys remember that part of the chapter? What was your take from that? What examples do you have regarding that? Because there are two very famous examples, but let's discuss that point that he's making in the chapter, which was sometimes your knowledge does not equate, doesn't guarantee the success, right? And your amount of effort you're putting in it may not give you the output that you would normally have. Who wants to go on this point? Who wants to discuss? Inga, I know you're quiet. If you don't mind, if you are comfortable, you can unmute yourself.
It's all family is here, so I muted it because my child is here.
It's
So
okay.
it's a little bit
My
noisy.
child is here too. He has full
Noisy.
legs. Where is? Oh,
Yeah.
sometimes he barks, but it's okay.
Watching cartoons. So first, I wanted to tell about the situation about the part where when you live in one country, you can also have different life experience because and you have different kind of experience with money and family things. Because I was raised in very hard period of 19th years, from 19th to 2000 years. It was very hard period for my time, for my family. So in the exact time, my husband lived absolutely another life, like in other reality. But we were living in one country with one crisis. Because crisis was impacting all the people, but his family had a business, so he absolutely don't know these struggles that I went through. This was my example of this kind of different experiences about money. So we look very different about money spending and money saving and money everything, psychology of money for ourselves. This was for that's another topic. And what you were asking, Anna?
So I wanted to discuss the importance of luck and timing. Can anybody think of in their own lives, or if they know other people, where you can come up with an example of how luck and or timing played a role in the outcome of the outcome that you were looking for? Anyone can jump in. CF hasn't really participated, so CF, if you feel comfortable, you can jump in, or Maria or Armine, anybody who wants to reflect on the idea of importance of luck and timing. And can you come up with an example?
If I can jump in very quickly.
Yes, please.
Sorry. So I think that timing and the connections and the luck is very important. But if you are not, let's say, intelligent or dedicated enough to use this timing, to use these connections in the right way, you might just lose this opportunity, right? So I think it comes from experience. So basically, when you train your intelligence and when you understand that, okay, opportunity that might be one lifetime opportunity that happens only once in my life, and how to use it, how to leverage the most out of it. So this is I'm sure we all of us has opportunities in life, but not everyone can notice and use them. I mean, use in a right way, in a positive aspect, I mean. So that's another thing, and I think here is a lot to do with your intuition, your soft skills. As the example of that gentleman who was very rude with the hotel staff, right?
Yes.
And how he ended up. Basically, if you are not, let's say, intelligent enough, and if your communication skills are not developed enough, it doesn't matter how rich you are, you will never be fulfilled, and you will end up in the situation like this. I mean, not everyone, but in most cases. This is just my opinion.
Let me share another anecdote or an incident from one of my clients. I vividly remember I had a client who was preparing to buy an apartment in New York City, and he was in the middle of this bidding war. Every time he would go try to get an apartment, he would, he was working with a real estate agent. He would put a bid for the apartment, and then somebody else would end up giving a bigger price and higher bid, and they would take it away. And so we were at the dinner, a bunch of us, and then somebody said, well, I can't believe it that, why are you not just invest your money in the market? Market's doing so well. And his response, when I say market, I mean the stock market. And his response was like, I cannot be irresponsible with this money. This is my down payment money. So let's call it was like, I think $200,000. He was buying an apartment. He needed to put $200,000 down payment for the apartment. And the suggestion was that, oh, while you're looking for the apartment, you don't know how long it's going to go. Maybe it's going to take another 6 months, but until you find the right apartment and you win the bid. In the meantime, why don't you just make sure your money is working for you? And his response was, um, you know, this is my down payment money and I cannot risk it. And in fact, what happened in real life, I don't remember exactly what was the reason, but there was some catalyst, fund reason, and the market dropped drastically. Like market dropped. So had he put his money, like if he had gotten a suggestion to put it in the stock market so it would work for him, he would have lost big chunk, significant percentage of his money that was supposed to be a down payment. So timing is crucial, and luck is also crucial. And I'll give you another example. And most of you probably know what happened with this new AI platform coming up called DeepSeek, and how, the stock market, the US, at least the US, but US and the world, in a way, the technology stocks crushed, right? I mean, some stocks like Nvidia, they said at one point it was down more than 17%, and then I think overall it's down like 10 or 11%, and obviously every day that changes. Most of the big technology companies, especially the ones who are related to this field, they're all down. And the funny thing is like, again, I have another client who has a special account in the US. We have these special accounts called HSA, health savings accounts. And those are accounts where the government will allow you to put money aside that can only be used for healthcare costs relating to healthcare. And when you do that, you get tax deductions and the money grows tax free. So it's a very important thing to do. So again, we had a situation with a client, and they knew there was a big surgery coming up. And I kept telling them, listen, the surgery is coming up. Just release the money, just sell it, put it aside, because you don't know what's going to happen to the market. Market's been going up a lot, right? And unfortunately, they didn't listen. And of course, market's down. So no matter what, it's affected her account. So now she's, trying to make extra 1 or 2 points, but yet she lost because no one knows. Like nobody has a magic wand. No one can predict. No one can guarantee day to day what's going to happen to the stock market or to your investments. But the idea of timing, idea of the importance of timing and importance of luck is very, very important, because some people just get lucky and they sell it before a big major problem, and some people don't. So yeah, luck and timing are very, very important. Does anyone else want to share any other stories relating to time and luck, and then we can move on to the next point.
I can share some examples from my life and from my daughter's life. I think that luck is very, very important. And it's known fact that hard working is not always enough, and sometimes it is not very important to become rich. And it's better to do it in a right time with right people than to do hard working. And I have one story. It depends on my. It is about my daughter. Last year we were looking for the opportunity for her to scholarship to study abroad, and she is studying in a specialized FISMAT school. She was studying here in year one, and we just we were looking for, and we couldn't find any opportunity. And one of her friends asked her to go together to pass the English exam because of some just they didn't really know why. That it was some program they maybe give money for studying abroad. And it was like they didn't know where they go, and she passed the exam, and now she's studying in UK with full scholarship.
Amazing.
So yeah, I always tell this story because it was luck. And she passed this exam, and his friend no.
Amazing. Well, it's a very, very good story. And just to sum it up, does anyone have any other comments regarding how did you change or shift your own mindset based on the first chapter of the book? Last comments before we move on.
For me, it was important to realize why I think like I think now, because I always thought that I have very low risk tolerance just because of my family or something like this. But now I know for sure that it is not my fault or my family's not only my family's fault, but this is the time period where I was born and I grew up. So now I have not just not excuse, but I know why it works like this. The second step is how to change this mindset.
Amazing. Okay,
Yes,
so
and I have one thing to say
yes.
about what changed in me these days. I was talking with my sister. She was talking that she has left 1 year to finish her credit card payment. And she was telling me like, can you imagine in 1 year I have to pay like 10,000 laris and all this. It's a huge amount of money. So everything is going to credit and so on and so on. And I was telling her, this money goes to credit. You know that you need this monthly money to pay your credit card payment, yes? And when you finish it, you can continue doing this thing because you already are adjusted to lose this amount of money every month that you have that you are paying in your credit card, and you just can continue. And these 10,000 laris you can just collect
Save
for
it,
yourself,
right? Save
invest.
it
Yes,
and
you can
invest
save
it.
it for yourself. You know that you can do it now, but now you have to do it to pay some bills, so what you needed. But this money you can save for yourself. So this is my concept of this 1 week change in my mind.
Thank you for sharing, for sure. I mean,
I
again,
was not thinking about this like
oftentimes we
another
don't
time.
know what
Yes.
we're capable of. We don't think we can do it, but then, then we find out actually, yes, we can. So,
It's about this chapter in book where they say that people spend thousands of dollars in lottery tickets But when they need some money, like 400 or 500 minimum dollars, they just cannot collect it in one time. But they spend a lot of money
Well, that brings up a
this.
very
Yes.
important point. I was going to close out the session and go to the rent versus own, but I think you brought up a very important point, so I want to touch on that before we finish. Okay, why do you think, statistically speaking, at least in the US, and I'm sure the statistics applies to the entire world, but why do you think it is when people buy lottery tickets? First of all, at least in the US, more than 95% of the people who win the lottery ticket are immigrants. They're poor people. They're immigrants. But they win the lottery tickets in the US. And then when they do win the lottery tickets, who can take a guess what happens with this money? How long do they have to spend it? And like in general, what happens with the money that they win? Who can take a big guess, or at least an educated guess what happens?
I think they lose this money because they don't know how to deal with big monies. Big
Exactly
money.
right.
I will not say that everyone will do this. It's a 50-50. Or they are dreaming about
Inga, I
something.
wish it was 50-50, but it's not.
No.
Unfortunately, most of the people go through millions of dollars. I'm talking about 20, 30, 40, 50 million dollars, and they spend it. Some of them they spend it in less than 1 year. Some of them it takes them a little bit longer, let's say 5 years. I actually knew a family who won the lottery. It was so funny because the boy, the son, was my college, my friend. We both attended college together. We were taking the same courses. And then all of a sudden, I felt like something changed in him. Like he was like a different person. I'm like, what the hell is going on? It's the same guy. His name was Marcelo. I'm like, then I find out that apparently his family won like $10 million. In their case, thank God, they were able to work with a financial advisor and put some of it aside and so on and so forth. But statistically speaking, most people who win the lottery, they go through it very, very quickly. They waste it. And one of the most important reasons why is because they don't have the financial education, they
Yes.
don't have the know-how, and they don't even have the belief in themselves. They don't even have the belief in themselves. They think they're bad with money. They think they don't know how to deal with money. So that's really, really important.
I think very similar for this is about guys in football, in basketball, in some kind of sports that don't have this education and they go to big clubs. They get a lot of $1 million and they spend it like very, I know very much or very big people.
So they live above their means. They're living this big
Yes,
lifestyle.
yes,
They have an
yes.
entourage. They have like a makeup artist, and they have hairdressers, and they have bodyguards, and they have all these things. And it's crazy that all this. And for us average people, we're looking at them. We're like, oh my God, they're living the life, right? Which brings up another point. I know I give you a lot of stories. And if you think it's too much, please let me know. I will not get upset and I will not get offended if
I
my
just want
stories
to
are...
interrupt for a second.
Go ahead.
I was in the taxi driving to the movie screening, and the taxi driver was listening to our conversation, and he asked for our Instagram handle to join next week.
That's amazing. That's funny.
Cool.
Okay, so can I
Very good marketing, Maria.
So can I give you another story, because I think this one is a crazy one. Do you guys, I don't know if you follow in the US, there is this show, it's like a reality show called The Real Housewives of all these different cities. Like they have Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, they have the Real Housewives of New York, they have Real Housewives of like Orange County. I don't know if you guys follow these shows or not. But if you don't, let me tell you a quick version of what happened. So they had all these different shows from, and showcasing these ladies, and they're living this big life, right? They have. So the one particular one that I'm referencing is the one from it's from Beverly Hills. So the show is showcasing all these women from Beverly Hills, and they're all friends with each other. So one of the women that came into this, like many seasons, every season they have like, let's say 10, 15 episodes, and they stop and they come back again and do another 10, 15 episodes. So there was this one woman comes in, she was in her mid 40s. She had a pseudonym. And her name was Erica, but she had changed her last name. Anyway, so she's married to this very well-known attorney guy, probably like number one or two attorney in the US, who was making millions of dollars, if not 10 million, $100 million a year. I mean, he first episode in the show, she's like taking the private jet. She's flying from LA to New York to the Hamptons, da da da. And every time she's traveling, she's got her entourage. She's wearing all these crazy outfits, spending a crazy amount of money. Long story short, so we are, as people like the rest of us, are watching this show 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Guess what happens? What did we find out? We found out that not only her husband was frauding people, he was taking money. He was basically an attorney where, if there was like a lawsuit against big companies, they would take some money. So he had basically taken advantage of a lot of uneducated people. And instead of giving the settlement money to these poor people, he had kept it, and he was living this big lavish lifestyle. And the wife was living this lavish lifestyle and way, way above their means. But anyways, so long story short, fast forward a few years, he gets caught. They take everything they own away from them, everything and some, and they threw him in the jail. She basically pretended like she knew nothing that was happening, and she went from living this big lifestyle to not, and she was crying on TV as to how difficult it was to live a regular, normal life. What's my point? Why am I bringing this up? It always looks so much greener, like the grass is greener on the other side. You see these people, everybody's flaunting their fake lives, fake money, fake houses, fake cars, fake jewelry, all this bullshit, in my opinion. So I just want to remind everybody, please do not compare yourself to other people and say, oh, how come they're doing this? How come they can do this? Because we have to kind of try to center ourselves. And I always try to teach my own children, live for yourself. Do the things you want to do for yourself. Buy the things you want to buy for yourself. Go to the vacations that you want to go for yourself, not do it for other people to impress other people. Because I feel like this culture of trying to impress other people, unfortunately, because of social media, because of Instagram, because of all this, it's just gone out of hand. But anyway, I wanted to give you that story because this is a real story. This woman and all the other women who also happen to be very wealthy, they couldn't even keep up with her. They're like they couldn't bring entourage and makeup artists. And I remember there was one episode, I think they were in Hong Kong or something. So they're all sitting at a dinner at a yacht waiting for this Erica to show up. An hour goes by, 2 hours go by. Finally, she shows up in this red leopard, whatever, skin tight outfit, which took like 3 hours for them to put it on her and like water her or something, whatever. It was like a weird outfit. And then the hair, all those stuff. Anyway, and everybody was so scared like to go against her. It was crazy. It was hilarious. But my point, what is what is my point? It is crazy, and people, many people tend to live above their means, and when you do that, eventually it catches up with you. It may not catch up with you right now, but eventually it catches up with you. So those were the points I wanted to make. If there are any other comments or anything else, we can sum up, and then we can jump onto the second portion of the presentation quickly. Anyone else? Okay. I saw Soul is joining us. Hello, Soul. If you want to just quickly unmute yourself and say quick hello. I think you're from Paris, from France for sure. Welcome, welcome. I know you missed some of our discussions, but I'll send you the recording, or you can go to accelerationcircle.com and the recording is there. So let's talk about renting versus owning. Okay, guys? let's talk about renting versus owning. And I have a couple of things that I've prepared, so I'm going to share my screen. Looks like there's people that are making some comments. Let's see what it is. Too long time. Okay. Okay. So Andrea says she was watching it. That's right. Okay. All right. So I'm going to share my screen, and you guys tell me if you can see it or not see it. Let me just see where it is. Okay. Where is my, here we go. Here we go. Okay. Okay. This is this the one, renting versus owning is this one here, right? Okay. Yes. Okay. So first, before we go any further, can anybody tell me what their preference is? Are they renting or owning? What they think is right and why? Before I go through my case study, I want to know what you guys think about renting versus owning and why. Who wants to go first? Go ahead, Arminajan.
Yes. According to my experience, my life experience, for me, it's better to own the flat. As I said, because of my life experience and time period. And also, it is safe. I think it is safe because you never know. You will lose your job and you will not have enough money to pay for rent. And also we have crazy experience 2-3 years ago when Russian people came from Russia because of Russia and Ukraine war, and a lot of people stay without
So
flats.
the rents went up because of it, right?
Yes, because Russian people pay much more money and they was ready for any price. And people who maybe rent for 5-10 years, they lost their flats and stay just on a street. It was crazy. So no one knows.
Does anyone believe that renting is better than owning? Can anybody come up with any reasons why owning may not be such a good idea? I'm just curious to know if there's anyone who thinks maybe owning may not be such a good idea.
No, I don't think so. Yes,
Okay.
I'm for owning.
Okay. Maria?
My opinion is that it depends on which country are you, but because of the inflation, because of the political situation in the country, your property might worth less and less. Sometimes it's vice versa, but it depends. And another thing is because from my experience, I own the apartment, but it's kind of made me attached to one country. And sometimes when I see that, and especially with my work, I'm not attached to one place, so I can travel and work. And sometimes I think that it would be much easier to travel the world and just rent,
But you have a safe space.
But so I'm curious
Yeah.
to know if you guys have any idea in your own countries, what is an average rate of return on an investment for real estate? So going back 10, 15, 20 years, and I'm going to give you statistics based on the US markets, but for your own specific geographical regions, do you have any idea what has been the average growth rate in a real estate in a market, in a housing market in your own geographic regions?
Как сказать, район?
And if do you have any idea what do you think would have been the average rate of return for real estate in the US? Can anybody take a guess? What do you think is the average growth rate of real estate in the US?
I think it's very big because huge because I hear a lot of complaints about people cannot buy a property.
But yeah,
Right.
yes, but you also have to remember, there is the real rate of return and there's the inflation adjusted rate of return,
Yes.
right? Because if inflation is higher, then that makes a big difference. So
Yeah,
I'll give you some
in our
statistics.
country, it's not working right this way. Yes.
Well, if
The
you're
same here.
curious, if you send me your geographic
Yes.
region, I'll do some research and I'll come back to you and let you know what your real estate average rate of return has been. In the meantime, let's dive in and let's look at the US real estate market and let's look at the case study of renting versus owning. Okay? So I'm going to share my screen again. Okay. Let's see, where am I here? No, that's not what hold on. What did I do here? Share. Okay. Stop. Okay, so I think I have to go like this, maybe.
You are already sharing it, just open the document.
I see. But I have to minimize it or something. I think I have to minimize it somehow. Let me stop sharing and share again because I don't know how to do that. I'm not as technology savvy as you are, Maria. Okay, here we go. Now we go like this. Here we go. Okay, here we go. Okay, so first and foremost, what I did here is I said, let's review and let's take a look at, and I know we've been going for a while now, and I know it's like 12:49 my time, which means we've been talking about 50 minutes, but as long as this is interesting for you, we can look at it and then we can pick it up from where we left off. But this document that I put together, and I said how your $10,000 would have grown from 1990 to today, 24 or 25, I can say 25 because we're technically in 2025, right? So how your $10,000 investment would have grown depending on where you had put in. What I did is I compared cash, which is US dollars, versus stocks, versus gold, versus real estate. And just to give you some idea, if you had kept your money in cash, which is basically putting under the mattress, or even you put it in the bank because the banks do not pay a lot of money. And I'm also taking inflation into consideration, and inflation on average, at least in the US, has been anywhere between 3 to 4%. Holding cash in the US for the last, I don't know how many years, 20, 40 years, right? So 20, 45 years. If you had put $10,000 in the bank or under the mattress or under your pillow, your $10,000 would be worth $3,800 today. Does this make sense to you? Do you know why? Why do you think your $10,000 would be worth $3,800? And it's not real $3,800. It would still be $10,000, but the purchasing power of your money would have been as if it would be the same as if you had 3,800. Do you know what this means? Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm saying? If you put $10,000 in 1980 in the bank, today it still would be worth 10,000. But the purchasing power of the same 10,000 would have been as if you only have 3,800. And that's because cost of living goes up, cost of everything goes up, cost of services goes up, cost of buying milk goes up, cost of buying a house goes up, cost of transportation, everything goes up. So that's what inflation is about. So the real loss is approximately 3% per year. So inflation erodes the value of your 10,000. So even though if you had put in $10,000 in 1980 in the bank or under the mattress, it would still, paper money would still be worth $10,000, but the value of it, the purchasing power of it, would be worth a lot less because $10,000 back in 1980 may buy you a lot of things, but $10,000 in 2025 will buy you a lot less. Does this make any sense? Yes or no?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Moving on. What do you think would have happened if we put the money in gold? Do you think it would be a good idea to put the money in gold?
Yes, I think it's good. It's always a good idea.
Okay. One of the reasons is because they always say it's like a hedge against the stock market and hedge against inflation, right? The gold and
Yes.
metals. Now, average rate of return of gold, again, this is, I'm talking about average over last 40, 45 years. The gold has gone up approximately about 3.6%. You can say 3, you can say 4, between 3 and 4%. So same $10,000, if you had bought gold bullion, or you paid at that time back in 1980, the 1 ounce of gold was worth $600 per ounce. Ounce is a measurement, right? It's like I know in Europe they don't use ounces, they use gram, but here in the US we use ounces. So back in 1980, $10,000 would have purchased you 16.7 ounces of gold at $600 per ounce. Okay? Fast forward to 2024 or 2025, because we haven't experienced 2025 yet, right? It's end of 2024. Your $10,000 would have been worth $36,000. This represents, because the value of the gold has gone up from $600 to $2,000. This represents on average about between 3 and 4% average increase rate of return growth rate on your investment. So is this a good thing?
Yeah, so it's a good investment to invest
Yes,
in
it's a good
gold.
investment.
Mm-hmm.
Would we be better off to put the money in gold or real estate? What do you think would be the answer?
Maybe both.
Let's take a look, guys. Let's take a look, okay? All right, so let's go to home ownership. I have 2 scenarios for home ownership. One scenario I'm showing, yeah, if you put in $10,000 as a down payment for a house, okay, which is a 20% down payment to purchase a $50,000 house, okay? So 10,000, 20% down on a $50,000 house, or 0% down starting at $60,000. I just want to show you 2 different scenarios. With $10,000, your return at the end of 2024 would have been worth, your money would have grown from $10,000 to your house. Actually, the price you would have purchased is at $50,000. The house that's worth $50,000 would have been worth $450,000. This represents on average 5.4% rate of return. So in the US, the housing market is actually between 4 and 5%. 4 and 5% average growth rate for US real estate market. Okay, and this doesn't include maintenance, taxes, mortgage, which we're going to cost, the pros and cons of owning versus renting, just pure investment. So 10,000 would have allowed you to buy a $50,000 house, and it would have been worth $450,000, which would represent 5.4%. Now, if you do 0% down, starting at 10,000, that house only would be worth $60,000. Okay, so if you didn't leverage, because here you're borrowing money from the bank, right? You're putting in 10,000, but you're buying a $50,000 house. Here you're buying $10,000 house, and how is that changing? So again, the real estate growth rate in the US is between 4 and 5% over time. And there is another option. A lot of times people buy property because not only they want to live in it, but they also want to buy it to rent it to other people, right? So that's a rental property. So it's a rental investment. And what you do is, again, you put some money down, and then you borrow money from the bank, and then you have a tenant that comes in, and the rent you collect from the tenant pays not only for your mortgage,
Yeah.
but also pays for
Wait,
the
wait. Can we
Maria Jan,
wait? I mean, are we waiting for someone else?
Only Francesca, we can start.
Maria Jan, mute
Okay.
yourself, honey. So the rental scenario. The rental scenario is obviously better return because now you're leveraging somebody else's money. You're leveraging bank's money because You put the same $10,000, but now you had a tenant that was paying you rent, that was paying you, helping you to pay towards your mortgage. So you have appreciation plus the rental income. So your average rate of return would have been 7 to 9%. And lastly, let's compare this to the stock market. If you had put in the same $10,000 in 1980 in the stock market, which in this case, I am using the S&P 500 index, which is the Standard & Poor's 500 index representing the top 500 companies in the US, your $10,000 would have been worth $1.3 million, representing average of 11% return on your money. The strongest long-term growth if you were to take this scenario. So just to give you some idea, cash is losing money. Your real return is actually negative 3% because of inflation. Gold is about 3 to 4% average rate of return over time. The S&P is 10 or 11%. And buying a house is between 4 and 5%. If you were to live in it, buying a house for yourself, you live in it, but you at least take advantage of the increase of the value, right? Appreciation. Or you buy a rental property where not only you're doing the appreciation, but you're also collecting the rental income. That represents 7 to 9%. So obviously, math-wise, if you do the math, obviously the stock market is the strongest, right? It's the best return, highest return, significantly outperforming the gold and real estate. But then real estate also performs well. And then gold, and then obviously cash is the last one. So I just wanted you to have a sense of what it is to, if you were to use your money and invest your money in different scenarios. Now let's go back to the question of renting versus owning. First and foremost, there is no right or wrong. It's a personal decision, right? You know, I live in a house that I own, but I'll tell you the reality. It's a pain in the ass. I'm sorry, but it is. There's always some cost associated with this house. The roof needs to be maintained. The plumbing needs to be maintained. We have a big front yard. We have a big backyard. By the way, here, I want to show you. It is a beautiful house. This is my house, and I don't know if you can see. I have a pretty big front yard, and that requires maintenance. It requires a lot of money to hire people to come and maintain this house, right? There's higher costs of, property taxes in the U.S. Property taxes are huge, unlike in other countries, like, in Asia or some other countries. Maybe you have a property tax of, I don't know, less than, 0.5% of the value of your house. I mean, let's say I've seen, at least in like Armenia or in like Asia, property taxes are less than $1,000 a year. Here in the US, at least in my town, the property taxes are over $30,000 a year, or $20,000 a year, or $50,000 a year. It's crazy. And why? Because they take the property taxes and it goes into two different buckets. Half of the tax goes towards the school system. So all the kids that go to public schools, the public schools are paid for by the property owners in that town. So that, and then the other half goes towards the running of the town, running of the municipality, maintaining the libraries, maintaining the and other public services and so on. So you're paying taxes, and that's where your taxes are going. So for the camp that says owning is better, yes, owning is better, and a lot of the times it will work out in your favor, especially when you are smart about what you're owning. Unfortunately, oftentimes people buy a bigger house that they can afford. Have you ever heard of the phrase, they buy a bigger house they can afford? And I've seen it in my own experience as a financial consultant. If you recall, in 2007, 2008, we had that real estate market meltdown, right? And everything was just flipped, upside down. And I remember, again, these are like telling signs. It's like the red sign, because I had clients who had come in for a review and we were reviewing their accounts. And then they told me, oh, we went to our mortgage broker and we were thinking about buying an apartment, in Washington, D.C. for $200,000. But my broker said we can actually buy an apartment for $1 million. The bank will lend us money for $1 million. Isn't that great? We're gonna buy this beautiful apartment we've seen. So I was like, and this was a gay couple. They were lesbians, but it doesn't matter. They were nice people. And I'm like, why do you need $1 million apartment? Do you really need $1 million apartment? Why do you need all this extra cost? Do you have to pay for that? Like, okay, the bank is lending you money, but you have to pay back. You have to pay mortgage. You have to pay, interest payments on this. Why would you need to do that? So they didn't buy the $1 million, but they did end up buying a much bigger apartment that they needed, right? Their original intention was to buy an apartment for $200,000. They end up buying an apartment for $600,000. Needless to say,
Anna, dear,
yes,
I'm very sorry to interrupt. Can you please check your phone?
yes. Let me check my phone. 1 second. Yep, let's check the phone. 1 second. Give me a second, guys. We have to help our friends. Nothing has come in yet. Nothing is coming, Maria. So if it does come in, I'll let you know. Oh, there it is. Okay, it is Maria 853967.
539.
Hi, Nico.
Hi,
Hi,
honey. And thank you so much.
You're
so sorry
welcome.
to do this
Anytime.
to you.
853967.
Can you repeat it, please?
853967.
967. 853967.
It worked?
Waiting. You are the best. Thank you. Love you.
You're
Mwah.
welcome. Have a good one.
Thank you so much,
Okay,
dear.
you're welcome. Enjoy. Okay, guys, let's finish up our conversation. We will pick up from where we left off because I have a lot more data I want to go through. One thing I will leave you with, the discussion, the argument of renting versus owning, and we'll go through these numbers next time. But I will tell you, when you're looking at information, not everything is as it looks and sounds, right? Because with the people who are in an owning camp and they say owning is best, yes, it can be, but you also have to remember there's additional costs. There are usually more costs when you are an owner because there are unexpected expenses that the renters don't have to deal with. When you rent, if something goes wrong, if the refrigerator breaks down, or if the roof is leaking, that's the tenant's, that's the owner's problem, not yours. So you don't have additional potential unexpected costs. You don't have the property expenses. The other thing most people don't realize is that if you were to, typically speaking, when you rent, it's usually your rent is cheaper than owning a house because having a house and paying a mortgage is more expensive. So if your cost of living was less, and let's say if you were to own a house and you're paying $4,000 a month for the mortgage and the taxes together, or you're renting a house and it's costing you $2,500 a month or $3,000 a month. Let's say there's $1,000 difference. Now that $1,000 difference, if you had just taken that $1,000 and invested in the stock market, now you can properly compare what is the real difference between costing versus renting, right? Because you cannot just say, I own a house and my house is worth this much money. That's great. I did really great. But how much money did you spend on your house every month? 4,000 a month or whatever that means. You take the same 4,000 a month and put it in a stock market. Okay, you take the rental money out, and we'll go through all these numbers next time because I prepared. It's just that it's already way past the hour and we gotta stop. If you take the same money and you take into consideration the difference, what would have happened if you taken the same money and put it in some other investment. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted you to see what are the historical rates of returns on what kind of, if you were to invest your money in gold versus real estate versus stocks versus bonds and so on, because that makes a difference. So in summary, there is no right or wrong answer, and we will continue this conversation for next time. Owning can be great, renting can be great. It just depends. It depends on your lifestyle. It depends on whether you have a big family or not. Like if it's just you by yourself versus you have kids who have to go to schools and so on and so forth. But I think the biggest problem that I see with people when they look at renting versus owning, they fail to think of two things. Number one, when you own, there are a lot more expenses as an owner that you have to deal with that the renters don't have to deal with. Number two, the difference in money that you're spending on a mortgage or the difference in money that you had to save to put towards a down payment, if you take the same amount of money and invest it in some other investment, such as the stock market, the market will probably outperform. Now, again, there's taxes involved. There's a lot of things involved. We'll go through it next time. But these are the things I want you to think about when it comes to this conversation. Any other questions, comments before we finish up for today?
I think when it comes to renting or buying, like the book said, it's not black and white. Like you're saying right now, that if you own a house, there's so many costs. And obviously, when you're renting, all of those costs actually go to the person you're renting from.
That's
So
correct.
I like when I was reading the book and it said it's not black and white, it really resonated to this topic of conversation that we were going to have.
Do you want me to send you my notes on the case study, or should we just do this together next week?
It would be nice if you send.
So
Yeah.
I'll send you the case study. We'll put it in our group chat so you guys have a chance to look at the numbers. And I really want you to challenge me. What you said, Armenia, I agree with you, because what happened to Armenia and Georgia and many other countries because of the war, again, it's unexpected, right? That's not the norm. And I do hear what you're saying in terms of, you have a lot more control over your future when you own it. At the end of the day, it feels great to own something as opposed to living in somebody else's house, although it's not always the case, right? I have renters who've been renting my properties for many years. And recently one of them sent me a text saying, "Can I please put build a shelf or something?" And I told her, I said, "Treat this house as if it was your own, because all for practical purposes, it's her house. Even though I own the title, it's my house and I can sell it. But she's been living in there for the last 8 years. So in a way, it's like her house, right?" I was like, treat the house as if it was your own. So there's no black and white. There's always this gray zone, and there's always extremes. Like what happened with the Russia-Ukrainian war, of course, it's an extreme case situation. No one would have expected this to happen, but things happen. Just like no one expected COVID to happen, but it did happen. And by the way, in the book, Morgan Housel discusses about this, and he calls it, you guys know what he calls that phenomenon? He calls it a tail event. But I'm not gonna spoil it for you because you're gonna read the chapters. So let's read chapter 2 for next week. We will post some questions in our group chat. I'll send you the case study for renting versus owning, and I will see you all next Friday, promptly at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Yes?
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your participation. I really
Thank you.
appreciate your thoughts. I really appreciate your comments. There are no right or wrong. It's really, truly, it's no right or wrong. It's what makes you happy, what feels right to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
Thank you,
time.
everyone. I'll see you soon. See you next week. Any questions, let me know. Thank you so
Thank
much. Yes,
you.
Armina Jan.
I'm sorry. May I ask you to stay for 5 minutes if you
Yes.
have it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Let me just turn the recording off.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
sweetheart.
Bye-bye.